Okay, welcome back. In the last video I showed you how to build a board to do the flashing effect, and I found these tiny SMDs from HDA Model Works. They're 0402. See if we can get a... And you're just going to have to believe me because I'm not going to change to my macro lens, but we'll change that when we put them on. But they are truly tiny, which is perfect because this is where we need to get them. One red one here, one green one here, and then the rest of the saucer is going to be lit by these strip SMDs, and I'll tell you what, I'll show you those in just a minute, but first there's one final modification I want to do to the insides of these saucers. So I've circled the spots in red where I want the red effect. So on the top portion, it's here, 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 and here, and it's actually there's three little holes here. It's the bottom two on each one that I want to be red, the top one white, and then on the under section there's just two little holes on each, which I assume are laser ports. But anyway, I want those all to glow red. We're going to light this with just white SMDs. So what I'm going to do is mix up some canopy glue, just a little tiny bit of canopy glue and a little bit of clear red to try to get kind of a red goop there, and just put over each of these holes a little bit of that red product. I don't think we're going to get a super bright glowing red effect, but hopefully we just get at least a little bit of a red tint. There's just not really room in here to do much more than that. If this was a bigger model, you would light these up individually with red SMDs and light block them so they don't mess up they don't bleed over into the white windows. There's just, it could be done, I imagine, but yeah, we're gonna, majority of the lighting on the saucer section is just gonna come from white SMD strips, and so the white will go through hopefully through the little red mixture of canopy glue and clear red paint to tint those little spots red. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a little dollop of this in the right spots. Actually, I think I'll use a little brush for this. Really just trying to get a little lens, right? Kind of a clear red lens over there. Over those. Okay, there's one side. Then the bottom's a little bit easier because you don't have to worry about the little white hole right next to the red holes. So just smear a blob on there on each of these. If I end up getting a little bit in an adjacent hole, I can always re-drill out that hole. It should clear out the red. I'm just trying to get enough on there so that I can't see the hole underneath where it's just covered with this kind of glue and paint mixture, on the assumption that then the light will shine through red. All right. I want to do a quick shout out to a guy named Jerry. I don't even know his last name, but his company is HDA Model Works. You can see the website there, hdamodelworks.com. He has lots of models, lots of modeling supplies, and a great selection of LEDs and SMDs. You can certainly also get these off of Amazon or eBay. You can get little single ones, you can get strip ones. This particular strip that Jerry sells is nice in that although we won't use it actually in our projects, in our project here, his strips come pre-wired now on both sides. And let me tell you, these are a bear to solder. We are going to have to solder them for this particular project because these wires are too thick. They're super thin, but they're too thick for my use. I'm going to use magnet wire for this project. So what I do is I take these, and I've already used them before, so I have pieces chopped down already, and I just take little strips off of, cut them off of them and solder them. So let me show you what my game plan is. I'm going to lay down my lighting in the bottom half of the saucer on the assumption that most people will be seeing the top most of the time, so to have the light shining up toward the top. If you were really psychotic, you might be able to get these in both halves, at least on this inner one. But let's face it, these guys put out a lot of light and this is very little space, so it should be enough to just do it on the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out either 3, or actually on this one try to fit in 4 SMDs and fit in a little strip of 4 along probably in here, and then either a 3 up here or a 4 laid up on top if I can clear these red lenses. By the way, I looked at these red lenses, you know, backlit, and they look really good. It worked out just fine. So let me cut out my pieces and lay them in, and then I'll come back and show the layout. Excuse the shakiness, but I switched over to the macro really quickly to get in close on this SMD strip, and you see there's a little line between each SMD. That's where you can cut, and while you're here, you see that second one from the right, it's got a little plus sign. So for what we have coming up is you see a little silver dot on each side of the SMD. Let's see if we can get in on. There we go. Obviously the little silver dot with the plus sign is the plus side, and the other side is the negative side. That's what we'll be soldering to. But I'll do now, see if I can hold this one-handed. Sorry about this, guys. And anyway, I think you saw there's a line right between each of these that right there that you can just snip on. Okay, I've laid in the SMD strips. You can see there's 4 of them here, 4 of them up there, 4 down here, and so what we'll do is down here we'll solder a long magnet wire lead, a positive and a negative, probably about 12 inches, just to give ourselves plenty of room. Then just up at the top here, a little connection there, little connection across here, and it just terminates there. And I use the magnet wire, 30 gauge magnet wire. It comes in these spools. For some reason they make red, but just red and green, no black or white, no other colors. So green is my negative, red's my positive. If you've used this stuff before, it doesn't get much thinner than magnet wire, and we'll talk about working with this. But so off camera, I'll go ahead and set up, and then we'll solder these little guys into this pattern. Magnet wire is, I think, the thinnest gauge wire available. It comes in 30 gauge and 28 gauge, and it's covered in a thin coating of something that you need to remove from the end in order to solder, so that you get a good connection. So there's a chemical way to remove it with lye or something like that I've seen, but what I do is I just get a little bit of solder on my tip, and I run it just starting at the tip really slowly backwards, and you pretty quickly see that coating kind of come undone and get caught in the solder. It dirties up the solder, which is good. It means it's coming off and leaving that that clean tip there. And so as a bonus, the tip's also tinned, and so when we go and then solder this onto that little bitty SMD, just, I think it makes the connection just a little bit easier. But anyway, so that's how I always clear off the tip of the magnet wire before soldering it onto something. As you can see here, I've taped down the SMD, and I've taped down the tip of the positive wire to the positive side and the tip of the negative to the negative side. You want to get this solder hit pretty quickly because you're working right next to SMD. Don't want to spend too much time here. Pre-tin your soldering iron, always. Actually got a nice little drop there, so let's go. Oh, it moved on me. Okay.
Okay, I fixed it. Yeah, it was just turned off.
The little positive wire moved on me. I'm getting back on there. Does not want to grab on there. Okay, I got him to grab on there off camera. Sorry, I was giving the positive was giving me a little trouble. It kept slipping out of there, but you see I've got him stuck on there now, and this negative stuck on there. I'll cut off 12 inches just to give myself plenty of room, and then we'll just test the power. Make sure we've got power. Okay, I've hooked them up to the temporary power supply. Remember to keep it at 3 volts. These particular SMD strips are not resistored. Most of Jerry's SMDs, just the single ones, come resistored for 9 to 12 volts, but these strips do not. Okay, and we're going to be running this off of 3 volts, 2 1.5 volt batteries, 2 AA batteries. So anyway, so I've got it set at 3, and we power it up, and we have power. So so these connections were good. I'll do the same thing, make a little harness, right? So just a little tiny bit of wire to the positive and the negative, from the positive and negative here to this guy. Same here from positive to positive, negative to negative, this guy, little harness kind of thing. And then we'll test these, of course, make sure we have power, and then assuming we do, we'll hot glue these in, and we'll have our inner lighting done, and then we'll tackle this outer ring. Okay, I've soldered together the 3 strips. Here's negative to negative, positive to positive. There's a positive up here, down to a negative here. I've made those little loops to get around some pins here. And then let's just hit the power. And we're good. We've got power. So next step, just hot glue this into place. And we'll be done with this step. I have my cool glue hot glue gun fired up. I really like this type of hot glue. It's cool hot glue, yeah, once you've used it, I don't think you'll ever go back to regular hot glue guns. It saves your fingers a lot of pain. So we're going to glue on this little light bracket that we've created here. Normally I would have run a little trench and a hole for the wiring beforehand, but I want to see what goes on the outside ring, and I may combine these wires or it may affect where I put them, so I've gone ahead and just glued this in before doing any kind of trenching or holes for where it's going to go. Oh, and I'm going to kind of double purpose. Actually, let's scooch this wire down here. When I strip these two wires, they we don't want them to touch each other where they're stripped, or you'll get a short. So we're going to kind of do double duty with the hot glue gun, and also use it as an insulator between these two wires. Just to be safe. And just put a blob of glue there. Push it in. Yeah, we'll need to run a little bit of trenching up here, but okay, so now we've got hot glue insulating the two wires so they can't touch each other. You can see why I only use the cool glue hot glue gun now. Alright, bracket number 1 laid in, and we'll start working on getting a lighting strip on this part here. The good news is we're not going to have to do it, I don't think, any cutting or breaking. I think we can just use strip, but let's get that laid out and then glued in. So all of my cut up strips were too short, so we'll take a full strip here, and what we'll do so that to not waste this nice little solder job that they've done down here, we'll take the middle part of it and just measure out enough of this so that we can cut out the middle part and keep those two ends wired up. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. I may end up with one extra or two that I need to get rid of, but and the nice thing I found out is this will actually bend a little bit so that I can lay it flat, because there's not much room to work with in here. Okay. Okay, I may be cutting this a tad long, but better a tad long than a tad short. Okay, so now we've got these two pieces that, you know, some other model, some other day, provided it's a little bit larger model, has more room, then these are already pre-wired and we can use them for that. Put those aside. And then this guy, so you can get a little bit of a, make sure I'm in focus here. You can get a little bit of a bend here by just working this all the way around sideways between your thumbs. And then once we get this shaped right and the correct length, then we'll go ahead and solder on a couple pieces of magnet wire to power her up. So I'll probably have to do this little bendy thing a few times, but let's just get a feel for how things are looking here. Probably snip off a little bit here at the end. Alright, looks like we'll snip off 3 of these guys. And I'll save it. You never know when you need a little tiny 3 lights. Alright, so I will fire up the soldering iron and we'll solder up our wire to this piece. I've soldered on the magnet wire. Hit it with 3 volts here, and we've got power. So we'll go ahead and get this baby glued into the outer ring of the saucer. I went around one more time and just bent between each segment, and then what I'll do is I'll glue down right here and then just work my way. Keep it in pretty close to this inner part of the outer ring. There's not much room in this ring as you get toward the edges, so I'm going to go up here pretty close to the edge all the way around and glue this down. Okay, here's my drilling plan. There's So this is the bottom half of the saucer. Here's our lighting in place. There's a little pin receptor right here, and then there's just a little molding circle right here. I think the perfect spot to run your hole through this all the way through, so we can get the wiring from the saucer section down into the main body, is right between these 2 points, between this hole here and this little molding round circle. If we hit right between there, then this piece fits down right there, and so it comes down right into this piece, and then this, oops, I did that backwards. Yeah, this piece fits in here, and this pin is forward of that spot. So we've got the hole will go through right here, and then this sits down on this main body piece, and the hole will end up going right down through here, just avoiding this pin here. It looks like the placement's all going to be perfect, and that way we can run all of that wiring down into the lower part of the body. It'll come out here, and ultimately all the wiring will go down through this hole, through a rod stand, a hollow rod stand, and off to power. So that's the drilling plan. I think what I'll do is just pop these together. They're all snaps, and just run that Dremel right through that spot, and let's see how that goes. I've just sandwiched these together. They all fit great, and so we'll pick our spot here between these two and just drill on through. I've got a piece of scrap wood under here that I keep for drilling. The mat on the table is self-healing, but I hate putting holes in it anyway. Okay, this hole here worked out just fine, and this hole here worked out just perfectly. It nicked a little bit of a spot where a pin goes in, but it didn't make any kind of damage to that. And then I kind of actually like the way it came through in here, but then it just barely nicked the very tip here. That's obviously not going to work, so later on we'll just drill a hole right between this existing hole and here, right in here, for the wires to turn a little bit in and then head on down into the body. That'll be easy enough to do. We have one last lighting task left for this saucer section, and that is lighting up this bridge section, right? So we've got this piece that just fits right into there, and then that sandwiches onto the bottom saucer, and then underneath we have, make sure the camera can get that, this piece which sandwiches in from the bottom. It's got nice indentations for wire to run through, no problem. So we're gonna run one of Jerry's SMDs through here. This particular one is the smallest one that he offers, 0402. I'm sure the next one up, 06, something or other, would also work. And as you can tell from this label, or from me talking about these before, he brings he sells them pre-wired and resistored for 9 to 12 volts. Since we're running this on 3 volts, and I'll test to make sure, but I'm gonna right now I ran it at 3, and because of the resistor it's very dim, so I'm gonna snip off this nice little resistor that he's wired in here, and just run it straight on 3 volts, and I should get brightness. I'm going to test that, of course, to make sure it doesn't even, that's not too much juice, hopefully, for this SMD. I cut away the shrink tubing and then just connected power directly to at 3 volts, and it's perfect. It's nice and bright, and it's not blowing out the bulb or anything. So what we'll do is run, actually we'll just probably essentially glue this guy down so that he stays there. And that'll be right between the bridge sandwich, as it were. This wire is so thin that I don't see any issue. Well, if need be, we can run a teeny little trench right there. That's not going to be a problem. And then it looks like we've got plenty of room in here, so if a dab of that hot glue gun glue right here to hold this just right in the middle, and then it'll run down the hole. So let me get that guy glued down, and I think we'll be ready to start sealing up the top part. I've test fit the upper and lower saucer, and it looks like I'm going to trench just a little, just take Dremel and just work off a little bit of material on 1, 2, 3. I guess right there at the front that you see, then the one behind it, and then the one back here. I'm just going to lay a little bit of a Dremel trench in there for the wire before we glue this down, so that it'll be flush and it won't pinch the wire. I've run little crude trenches in these 3 spots. All of this is covered up by on the top by this piece, and on the bottom by this piece, so it's not visible, so you don't have to be real pretty on your trenches. And then last thing before we seal up, we just make sure the lights are all working. So I've hooked them up to power, 3 volts, and you can see the middle bridge light, the inner ring, and the outer ring all working. And you can probably get a little idea of how this will look, maybe. I don't know. How about that? And this, as I said before, is a snap together model, and it actually snaps really well, but I'll probably still want to glue it down. I don't know. I guess what I'll do is first just see if it snaps all together and looks tight. Just hesitant not to get some glue in there, but it's always kind of nice if you don't have to glue, because obviously if for some reason you have to come back in
powering
there,
off,
it gives you the option. So let me first do a kind of a test snap, and then we'll see. Yeah, I'm getting I think a little pressure from the lights inside there. It doesn't want to stay snapped, so I will go ahead and lay down some model cement and clamp it down. It's very small, but I have some small clamps either that, or maybe I can even go toward that, and just do a kind of a traditional glue down. Before I do that, I run a little bit of acetone with a Q-tip along the edges that are going to meet, and then rub that off with water, and then dry it off really well. And as y'all may know, this liquid cement, it's not really an adhesive, it's more of a chemical bond. So you really need two clean pieces of plastic touching to each other. If you've got paint in between there, you're not going to get a good bond. And by the way, the reason I'm using this is because it gives me time to lay it all down, get it all right, clamp it. It's not instantaneous like some cyanos are, and the slow curing cyanos I find are so slow curing that I just find this is probably the better application for this particular use here. Now, even if I was using cyano, I'd still probably clean off all the edges that are going to meet. It just makes for a much better bond. So yeah, I'll clean it all, glue it up, clamp it off camera, and then come back. So one of the keys to model making is always thinking ahead, always planning, and as I was thinking ahead to sealing this up and what it would look like, it just occurred to me that I have not put in my coup de grace lights, my blinking lights, a red one here on the port side and a green one here on the starboard side. And again, in the show it's white. You can certainly go with white. Yeah, but I hadn't put them in. We built that whole board to make them blink, and boy, I would have been kind of bummed if I'd sealed this up and forgotten to put those lights in. So here they are. This is why I got these 0402s from Jerry. They're just tiny, and so there's a green and a red. And actually, I think I'll test them out. I may like them really dim with that resistor. On the other hand, I guess the board. No, you know what? The board is resistored already. So I'll just cut off the resistor like I did on the other one, on the middle one for the bridge. And then yeah, they're just these little tiny. It'll be perfect. I mean, I'll just glue it down, facing down into this hole, and then I'll take a little bit of this tulip t-shirt paint and light block it so that the flash isn't coming through on surrounding windows and things. And we're gonna have to. We don't have much room to work here, but these are small, and yeah. So let me get those put in. I'll show you, and then the wires I'll just hot glue down through here, and then they'll come up, through this same hole as everybody else. So let me get that in place, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like, and then we'll work on sealing up the top. Okay, valuable lesson. So the red SMD, I hooked it up to the 3 volts and it just fried. It got bright and then smoke came out. And I think I've heard that for some reason the green ones can take 3 volts, but maybe the red ones can only take a max of like 2.5 volts. Anyway, so the good news is, so I thought, well, let me hook it up to this board we built with its resistor and just see if it's bright enough, and it is. And so I think I'll just well, obviously I'm not going to cut out the resistor on this one. So I thought I'd show you. So let me very crudely here hook up power, and you see we've got our blinking light. So that's nice. That's the first time we've hooked the SMD. I mean, it should work the same as the LED, but it's nice to just know that. Yeah. So And the brightness is good. I mean, I don't need an overwhelming brightness for this application, so I think that's good. So I think change of plans. Just gonna leave them be with their little resistors on both. Well, actually, you know what? I'll hook up the green on here too, and let's just uh, I'll hook up a resistor one. You know what? I may hook up the non-resistor and just see if there's a difference. We'll be back. I've got both of the resistored SMDs posted in here, and so let's just apply our power. Okay, and hopefully you can see that over my fingers. I don't mean to be blocking here. If you, I don't know if you could see that, but they both looked good. But I want to prove it, so let's see. Okay. Now I wonder if that post is, can you see the, okay. I think you can see, and you know what, that's just fine. We certainly don't need it any brighter than that. So now that we know it works, I will glue in these two last SMDs into the top, and then I'll show you the glue job there before we go on to sealing it up. Well, Nirvana, we have so just you know, a dab of hot glue on top, and I rubbed it in super to try to keep it as flush as possible. Put a dab there and a dab there, dab there, dab there, dab there, and each one, you know, rub it in. It's just a thin layer. I will tulip over these, or you know what, I may actually, I'll probably just use black paint. Tulip, I'm just trying to avoid any kind of thickness here at all, because I know there's not much to work with. But yeah, anyway, we'll light block those, but yeah, if I can flip this without messing up my battery connection. We've got our effect here. Alright, we got the scariest part of model making underway, the sealing up of a component. In this case, the saucer section, the upper saucer section. I went back and forth between using the Model Master cement or a long, there are some super glues that are long-term, you know, it takes long for them to dry. I didn't have any. I ran out of it, so I went with Model Master. It seemed to be no problem. There was a lot to cover, but it's a small model, and I didn't see any issues. So I guess we'll tell when all the clamps come off. So I'll leave her clamped up here for an hour or two, and then check how it went. All right, we're sealed up, and everything looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and turn these lights off. You kind of get an idea of what we're going for here. We'll have photo etch going around the insides here, and so this glow will come through those windows. This light for the bridge I don't have hooked up right now, but it'll glow the bridge. One thing I noticed, I was talking about thinking ahead. I wish I would have gone ahead and laid the light in on this piece for this area here, and drilled a little hole for it. Obviously the bridge is going to be lit by this guy, but what we'll probably do is go ahead and lay that in and run maybe a hole here. I'm going to have to figure out a way, obviously, to get this. Maybe I'll just run it down in here straight into this piece, run the wire, since it'll be sandwiched down here. We'll find a way, but it would have been easier before if I'd just gone ahead and run an SMD here, drilled a little hole, and had this on the side when I sealed all this, but at least the wires were run through, so it'd be coming out here. We'll get around that, but for your purposes, when you're building this, I would address that piece, before sealing this up. Now I've lit up the middle piece too, just so you can see. The bridge has a little clear piece here that will fog up. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just for kind of grins, we'll just kind of put that on top there. Hit these lights. Yeah, and that whole ring around it will have photo etch, so it'll just be windows. It won't be that bright light. I was hoping to wrap up the saucer section in one video, but it's getting pretty long already, so we'll wrap up this part here with just telling you what's coming up in the next video. In the next video we'll tackle the photo etch that goes on the inside of the rings, as well as on the outside of the whole saucer. We'll paint the inside ones the copper color. We'll paint the outside ones the champagne gold color. So the first step will be to get those painted up. The outside rings have these little kind of like eagle markers on the corners too. Yeah, but we'll get all those painted up. We'll prime them with metal primer and then get them painted up, and then glue them into place. And on that same video, I think what we'll do is tackle these two pieces that go on the saucer, the bridge part and the bridge here, and then this piece that sandwiches down below, and lighting this piece. Also, on this bridge piece, I wish I would have put some lighting in here for this part before I sealed up the saucer, so that I could have run it along with these wires. I've thought about what solution to do there, and I think what I can do is run a little SMD, that'll go from here, the wires down through this peg hole. The wires are super hair thin, but if I need to, I can probably just make that peg hole a tad bigger. Luckily it goes straight down into this wire outlet. Of course I'll have to take these resistors off of it to run them, and it occurred to me I'm probably going to have to take the resistors on these blinking lights off too, to be able to get all of these wires run through this little hole on this segment. So we'll probably just remove those for ease and then add them back in later when we're done. I mean, I have enough length of wire here anyway, so I may have had to extend this anyway, so that'll be easy enough to do. So yeah, so that's the plan in the next segment. See you then.